So in this video, we'll be showing you clips from 5 different videos from our pre-seen analysis pack. And the first clip is from the pre-seen analysis series. It's vital that you fully analyze your pre-seen, and this requires a detailed examination of the case study, ensuring that every section is fully understood. So our pre-seen analysis video provides a page-by-page analysis of every section of the pre-seen, and it ensures you don't miss anything important, and it helps you to build a comprehensive understanding of the material. And this is vital if you're going to gain high marks in the exam. So in this clip, we've taken a section from our pre-seen analysis video series.
So in this introduction, we're learning who and what Shinyglas is. So we can see it's the largest fabricator of windows and doors in its home country. And that country is Templand, and it deals with both kind of residential to domestic properties as well as commercial properties. So there's some kind of diversification there. And then we find out in the second paragraph that Templand's currency is the Templand dollar. So what that means is there's going to be careful financial planning as well as risk management. And also we can see that it adheres to the IFRS codes. So it's aligned with global financial reporting practices. So that enhances transparency, comparability, as well as investor confidence. And of course, that's really important for any potential international dealings or investments. And then we learn, as we expect, we're financial manager at Shinyglas's head office. So we're focusing on management accounting practices, as we imagine. So we're at the heart of strategic planning and operational efficiency. Now we are reporting to the senior financial manager, and they in turn report to the financial director. So we can see that we are part of this structured hierarchy. So there should be clear communication, and hopefully that's going to be leading to some effective decision-making processes. And all of our analysis and reports are going to directly influence financial strategies as well as performance management. So there we go. Brief overview of where we sit in the organization at Shinyglas, who are the market leader, the largest fabricator of double glazed windows and doors in our home country using the Templand dollar. So there we go. That's our intro. Now we can drop on down to start on learning all about double glazing. Okay, so what we're learning about in this first paragraph on double glazing isn't in fact about double glazing. It's about single glazing. So I think even in comparable to European standards, kind of British windows are seen to be quite poor because of our kind of traditionally older housing stock. And that's because in this older housing stock, our windows were made out of kind of wooden frames with one kind of pane of glass in them. And so they were really easy to install and repair. I have wooden frames in my home, single panes. Sometimes we get water damage in, but they're easily fixable. You can just put some kind of wood filler in, paint over it, and they're good as new again. But as I can also attest, the single panes are really bad at preventing heat loss. So the central heating in a home kind of can easily escape through this single pane. And also, as I can also attest, the cold air from outside can come in through any gaps in the wooden frames. I can stand in front of my wooden window sometimes and I can feel the breeze coming through. My blinds and my curtains are kind of moving because the cold air is coming through. And as we can see here, a really important fact is that a single glazed house can lose up to 70% of its heat through windows, depending on the design and the construction of the house and the windows. Now, of course, this inefficiency not only increases energy consumption and heating costs, but that also links on to higher carbon emissions. And of course, as we're all aware, we know there's a kind of climate crisis occurring. So people are being urged to do what they can to limit their carbon footprint, but also we're also aware of rising energy costs, certainly in England, I think in Europe, maybe worldwide, I'm not sure. And so obviously occupants want to reduce their costs. So obviously if 70% of heat is being lost through a window, then obviously the windows seem a kind of really simple place, to improve the energy efficiency of a property. Okay, let's scroll down now past the very lovely looking single pane wooden framed windows, and let's learn a bit more about double glazing. Now, if single pane windows have one pane of glass, how many panes of glass does a double glazed window have? Well, actually, of course, the answer is very simple. There are 2 panes of glass in double glazing, and that double glazing, there is a gap between those 2 panes, and that gap is filled with air or an inert gas like argon. So this 2 panes, as well as this gap, make windows more energy efficient. And that's because the design of double glazing reduces heat transfer via conduction and convection, and that lowers the amount of heat escaping from a building. And so what you get by installing double glazing is improved thermal insulation, and of course that means you've got lower heating costs and the property has a smaller carbon footprint. And in fact, we can see the figure here that compared to the 70%, was it, with a single pane glazed house, a typical double glazed house will lose 10 to 15% of its heat through the windows. So we're looking at a 55% reduction in comparison to a single pane glazed house. And so we can see then it's also marketed on the basis that it retains heat within buildings. That's a huge selling point, and that kind of the cost of double glazing and the installation of it is you're gonna recoup that through lower heating costs, and so it becomes a sustainable investment for a property owner. So you've got 2 selling points in this paragraph, in that it's going to save you money in the long term as a house owner, but also if you're an eco-conscious consumer, and let's face it, who isn't nowadays, that you're going to be doing your bit to help the planet. But in fact, that's not the only way in which double glazing is marketed. We can see here that actually the extra pane of glass and the gap acts as a sound barrier against kind of random street noise, so traffic noise, noisy people in the street, etc., etc. So it's more effective at reducing noise than single glazing. So that's another selling point for double glazing. Saves you money in the long term, eco-friendly, and noise reduction. So that's going to increase an occupant's living comfort. And we can also see another selling point is that double glazing is also quite robust. Again, this is in comparison to single glazing. So basically what the selling point of this is that actually intruders are going to find it more difficult to break into a house that's double glazed compared to a single paned house, windowed house. Now it's not insurmountable. It's not going to be Fort Knox. You can still break it, but in comparison to your traditional windows, it's more secure. So double glazing is more secure. It increases living comfort, reducing external noise. So let's imagine you live in a really kind of high footfall or high traffic area. You've got a single pane house, then of course there's going to be lots of noise in the street. It's going to be not particularly pleasant to stay. Well, double glazing can alleviate that. If you live in an area where there's maybe slightly high crime, double glazing can give the occupant a little bit more reassurance that their house is secure from robbers or burglars, I should say. And also we've already talked about the eco-friendly nature of it. So there's lots of selling points to double glazing that we see in this section, which is going to form a lot of the marketing for Shinyglas.
Next up, we've got a clip from our strategic analysis. It's extremely important that you have the ability to identify how the pre-seen relates to key models and theory, and the examiners will expect students to demonstrate a good understanding of the models and theories and make the appropriate links to the case study during the exam. It can be hard to fully analyze a company using models you've only recently learned and be confident that you've got it right. So our strategic analysis has done that hard work for you. So in this clip, we're going to take a look at our strategic analysis video.
Let's kick off with the mission. And I've divided this mission box into 4 sections. So obviously, with the mission, we want to think about what the organization is all about, because then that gives a common purpose for every function of the organization to work towards. And in this section, we've got our 4 little sections: purpose, strategy, values, and policies. And you can see alongside each of those, I've got kind of the categories about how I'm evaluating them. So purpose, we're thinking about, well, who does the organization exist for, and why does it exist, and what are its aims long term? So let's zoom in. So what I've thought about is that Shinyglas basically exists in order to provide high quality, energy efficient windows and doors to homeowners as well as businesses across the entirety of Templand, but at the moment only Templand. And by doing so, the company aims to enhance the comfort, the security and the aesthetic appeal of properties, but also it's trying to contribute towards energy conservation and environmental sustainability. Now, in the long term, Shinyglas aspires to maintain its position as the largest fabricator in Templand, hopefully going to be expanding its product offerings. And what we're also going to be talking about is maybe also increasing its geographical reach to better serve its customers and stakeholders. Now, before I get down to strategy, actually, because we're zooming in here, let's just look at the rest of the 3 categories. So with strategy, we're looking at how will the organization compete and the range of businesses it's operating within. For values, what does it stand for? And then policies, the policies that an organization puts in place to make sure people act according to the sections we've just covered: the purpose, the strategy, and the values to achieve the mission. So let's go back to strategy now. So it competes by offering a number of products that are all high quality, which combine advanced materials as well as innovative design in order to meet the need of its customers. And it tries to maintain competitive pricing by having an extensive network of self-employed salespeople as well as independent installers, and it operates primarily within the kind of replacement doors and windows market, as we've already seen, offering both residential and commercial offerings. And one of its big pluses is that it leverages its strong brand reputation, has strategic partnerships with suppliers, and also has a comprehensive sales and marketing strategy in order to sustain that kind of competitive edge. Now we drop down to values. Well, Shinyglas stands for quality, value for money, and customer satisfaction, as we saw in those kind of independent assessments of how well they're doing amongst the consumers in the pre-seen. It's committed to providing products which are durable as well as beautiful. And as we saw in the vision section, the purpose section, pardon me, it's also about making sure they are environmentally sustainable. Now, that means they do have to innovate, making sure they're offering new products and technologies that kind of meet the market demands, and also make sure that they can stay in their position as market leader, charging the premium prices, because they're offering kind of the best products in Templand. Shinyglas also values transparency and fairness in dealings with its customers. We saw the issues if a company doesn't do that in those news reports, as well as working with their employees and partners, making sure they uphold high ethical standards. Again, we also saw how important that was in those news reports. And then finally, with policies, we know they've got policies in place to help its employees align, maybe employees is the wrong word actually, the people it works with, to align with its defined values, strategy and purpose. So we know there's rigorous quality control procedures in order to maintain high product standards. And we know that salespeople also undergo comprehensive training programs in order to make sure they are behaving as befitting of a company of Shinyglas's standards. And they also want to make sure they offer really effective customer service with warranties and guarantees as well. And we're seeing evidence of an organization that focuses on continuous improvement and accountability, making sure that employees are acting in a manner consistent with Shinyglas's mission and values. So there we go, really brief look, an overview really of what a Shinyglas is and what we've been learning about in the pre-seen. But now we can start looking at our first tool. And the first tool is the balanced scorecard. So obviously this is a performance measurement framework, so organizations can align their business activities with their strategic objectives. And so it's focusing much more on the entire organization, far more than the kind of traditional financial metrics, by incorporating different perspectives. So the learning perspective, the internal perspective, the customer perspective, as well as obviously the financial perspective, making sure the organization is achieving sustainable success. But let's have a look at the financial perspective first of all. Now, obviously this is the perspective which is focusing on the financial performance of the organization. And so we're looking at metrics here like profitability and cost management, etc., etc. Now, the first kind of KPI I've got for financial perspective is revenue growth rate. Now, this KPI is really useful because it measures the rate at which Shinyglas's sales are increasing year on year. And so it's really important for understanding how well the company is expanding its market presence and generating more income from its operations. So really it's a valuable indicator of a company's ability to expand its market presence and increase sales over time. Now, this is especially important for Shinyglas because we know how competitive the market is. So we want to make sure that our competition isn't eating into our performance. And it's also important in terms of our recent doubling of net profits, because obviously we want to make sure we understand where that figure is actually coming from. And by monitoring this revenue growth, it helps us make sure that we're maintaining our market position, or hopefully improving our market position. Now, the operating profit margin is our second one. It's something we highlighted in the financial analysis. And we highlighted it because it measures operational efficiency by showing how much profit the company makes from core activities before finance, costs and taxes. Now, because of the high finance costs of Shinyglas, it's really important to maintain a strong operating margin to support debt servicing and further investment. And obviously using this margin, we keep track of that. The interest cover ratio is my next margin, and this ratio has been chosen because Shinyglas has got significant finance costs, and the interest cover ratio measures the company's ability to meet its interest obligations from operating profits. Now, it's a really important metric for understanding the financial risk, as a low interest cover ratio obviously indicates vulnerability to fluctuations in profitability or increases in interest rates, and we were wondering about where all the profitability was coming from, and it's possible that there's an overheated market and there could be a downturn on the way. And the final one is something else we saw ROE in the finance video, and it indicates how effectively the company is using equity capital to generate profits. Now, because of the dividends that are paid out by Shinyglas and its focus on maintaining shareholder value, this is a really important KPI for assessing financial health and attractiveness to investors. Okay, our next perspective is the learning perspective, so learning and growth. So this focuses on employee development, organizational culture, and innovation. So basically you're asking, how can we continue to improve and create value? And this will kind of give you, or what you put in are the key metrics to help you understand that. So let's get going. I've got the first one on the screen. The number of training hours per employee. So this obviously KPI measures the investment in the employee development at Shinyglas. So obviously you think, well, actually, if we're increasing training hours, what we're also increasing, is the skill set of our staff, the knowledge of our staff, and that in turn improves overall productivity and job satisfaction, and that's going to support Shinyglas's strategic goals. And if we take up about one set of workers for Shinyglas, which is our salespeople, I think we saw in the news report section how important it is that salespeople are continually developing. They're continually understanding what they can and can't say, how far they should go in their sales, improving the knowledge of their products so that they can really engage with the customers right from the get-go. So key metric. The next element is the employee satisfaction score. So that's going to be showing how happy they are working with us. And obviously this is a key metric. We want happy staff, happy workers, so that we can retain them, that they are productive and engaged with their work. And obviously for Shinyglas, we're aware that we do have a high turnover in a number of areas. But also, that focuses more on salespeople. We also really want happy staff at our headquarters to make sure we're really productive and motivated. And the next one that ties into that is the employee turnover rate. So here, it would really quickly highlight if Shinyglas is actually successful at retaining its workforce. Because if we're not, obviously that's going to increase costs with recruitment, with training, and with maintaining operational stability. And if we stick with the salespeople group for a while, obviously if we keep losing salespeople, it's highly unlikely we're going to have a really great sales team. So it's important that we keep focused on this. Okay, our next metric on screen is the internal process perspective. So focusing on the efficiency and the effectiveness of the internal processes. So what do we need to be really good at? So the first one I've got is the production efficiency ratio. So this is the units produced per hour. So here we'd be looking at how productive our manufacturing operations are. Now obviously if we've got higher production efficiency, it means that we're producing more units with the same amount of resources. That means that we're cost effective and operating across our kind of systems really efficiently. So that's a really key one for us. The next one I've got is the percentage of defective products, because obviously this means that if we've got a low percentage of defective products. It means that we're maintaining a really high product quality, and if it's low, it really reflects the effectiveness of quality control measures. And if they're low, obviously customer satisfaction is going to be low, cost management is going to be low too. And then the third one I've got is time to market. Now that's time to market for new products. So here we're looking at the time taken from product development to launch. Now by reducing this time, it means that Shinyglas is able to respond really quickly to any kind of market trends or changing customer needs, and it means that we be staying ahead of competitors with innovative offerings. Now that's important for Shinyglas because we are differentiating ourselves, on quality. We're the market leaders, so obviously that means that we want to have like the kind of innovative advanced products. If it takes us ages to launch, our competitors could easily be quicker and we could lose some of our market share and certainly lose our brand reputation. Okay, the fourth perspective, and the KPIs I've got on screen are the market share percentage. So this shows our total market share in the window and door industry. Obviously, if it's growing, it means that we're doing really well. It means we're outperforming our competitors and gaining a larger portion of industry sales. But if we're not doing so well, if this is dropping, we really would have to evaluate what the companies that we're losing our percentage to are doing that we're not doing. And then the second metric I've got is customer satisfaction score. So this obviously shows how happy Shinyglas's customers are with its products and services. If it's high, obviously we're doing something really well, and hopefully we're exceeding expectations. And obviously if we are, that's really important for us because we charge more than our competitors. And one of the ways we do that is by making sure our customers are happy. Okay, so key metric for us. Okay, so there we go. That is our balanced scorecard with a number of metrics to evaluate how Shinyglas is doing overall, which kind of ties into what is really important about Shinyglas.
We're casting the net a little bit wider now with a look at the wider industry in which the Pre-seen company operates with our industry analysis video. It is critical to demonstrate to the examiner that you have fully understood the Pre-seen industry as a key element to gaining extra high marks in your case study exam. Researching the industry can be a laborious process, especially when you're not sure which information is useful and which isn't. And our team has spent hours doing this research for you, finding the information that will help you to achieve a wider perspective of the industry and build a deeper knowledge in preparation for your exam. So in this next clip, we'll be taking a look at our industry analysis video.
So let's have a look at the history of the double glazing industry so that we get a bit of a detailed outlook of what it looked like. So most of you will be familiar with the term double glazing. You might have heard about it, you might have it in your house. We know that it is two layers of glass separated by some sort of an insulating layer, and it's fine if that's all you know. We're going to go in a bit more detail in this video about what it actually entails. Either way, when you think about double glazing, you know that it's likely to reduce condensation, it's likely to give you better insulation, and it's likely to be a bit more soundproof, so it's going to reduce sort of the outside world's noises. You might not know how it evolved over time, and that's what we're going to look at. And you also might not know that the UK's double glazing market was valued at £1.9 billion in 2023, with steady growth expected as the market continues to develop. So let's go back to the beginning. In the early 20th century, a US-based refrigerator engineer created the first forms of insulated glazing, and that was in the 1930s. At this point, the technology was more of a luxury than a necessity. It was fairly basic by today's standards. It was not the kind of thing that we come to think of now as double glazing. But then it really began to take off. So in the mid-20th century, particularly in the 1950s and 60s, we had the post-war economic growth, which fueled this boom in residential construction. At the same time as more houses were being built, we also had energy prices beginning to rise, so people were becoming very conscious of their household bills, and the demand for better insulation began to grow. The UK in particular, with a colder climate, was very well suited to benefit from this innovation, and soon double glazing became a selling point for new homes. Initially it was seen as a premium feature, but as manufacturing processes improved and costs came down, it did become more widely available. We know that in the UK in 2020, up to 87% of homes had double glazing, so that is a really significant uptake of this double glazing. But let's go back to the 1970s. So in the 1970s, there was an energy crisis, which spurred an even greater demand for energy-saving solutions. Double glazing became a really key part of that push, and it offered a way to reduce heat loss and improve energy efficiency in homes. And it was during this time that the modern double glazing window, as we knew it, which is 2 panes of glass that are separated by that insulating layer I was telling you about, became standard in many households. Today, it's a really well-established industry, and although we do have some things coming up, like maybe triple glazing and other advanced options that are sort of slowly gaining traction, double glazing remains a really popular choice because it provides this balance of affordability and performance. While this was a feature that was initially a lot just about keeping houses warmer and reducing those energy bills, it has now become a really key player in reducing carbon footprints and aligning with sustainability goals, which has been adopted by many governments. So it's gone from being a luxury for the few to a household staple, and that trajectory is likely to continue. So as wonderful as that history lesson I'm sure was, let's now have a look at the industry life cycle and see how it fits into the history of double glazing. So you might have recognised that the beginning of the early 20th century sounded a lot like the introduction phase of an industry life cycle, with the first insulated glass windows appearing in the 1930s, the technology being new and quite niche, and a luxury rather than a staple. Early adopters were high-end commercial buildings and a few very affluent homes that could afford to invest in that insulation. Typically, of an introduction phase, this was a real focus on innovation rather than mass market adoption at that point. So we can probably identify the growth phase as being in that mid-20th century period where we had that boom in housing and the desire for energy efficiency, which created this demand for better insulation. We began to have key advancements in manufacturing, which brought down the cost of that double glazing, and it made it much more accessible to more homes. And in the UK, we had this colder climate that was spurring on that need for double glazing, and this is likely to be similar to our pre-seen country of Kentland, where we know that the seasons vary significantly over the year. So we have a variance in temperature over the seasons, which is likely to create that kind of colder climate, which creates that desire for better insulation. Moving into the maturity phase, by the late 20th century, we knew that double glazing had become a feature in many homes across the UK and in other countries. By this point, competition among manufacturers and installers was really fierce. We know that a lot of our key household names in the UK were developed in about the late 60s. So the late 1960s, we began to see these big double glazing firms being created, and they began to compete in this late 20th century. This was really good news for the consumer, as competition often is. So there was a greater focus on product quality, branding, and on this customer service. And there was continued innovation in terms of aesthetics, noise reduction, and security features, which continues today. The crucial question here is whether the industry looks like it might be declining. And it's looking at the moment that the double glazing industry seems to be fairly stable. We know that sustainability and energy efficiency are becoming ever more important, and the demand for high-quality insulated windows is continuing to grow. We know that older homes are being refurbished, which creates a market for replacement double glazing, and we know that governments are creating new regulations aimed at reducing carbon emissions, which ensures that double glazing remains relevant in both residential and commercial construction, and a lot of the time these windows need to be updated, which creates additional demand. Far from facing decline, it's likely to continue evolving as an industry, particularly as we know that green building practices are becoming more and more the norm, and customers are demanding more eco-friendly housing solutions. So let's see how well Shinyglas' company fits into this picture. So they were established in 1962 and emerged during a critical period in the double glazing industry's growth phase, which really coincided with that post-war economic boom and this increasing demand for home improvements, including double glazing. So this was really in line with the global trend of it becoming popular in the 1950s and 60s, and it did become an industry leader in offering UPVC frames in Templand. So that was a really key pioneering development that really set Shinyglas up as an industry leader. We know that, like many others in the industry, Shinyglas began to expand their operations during the mid to late 20th century, and they focused again heavily on product innovation, quality, and customer services, much like others in the industry did, to maintain its competitive edge. This approach allowed Shinyglas to dominate the market, and they were really committed to that innovation, which means that they're going to continue to hopefully experience the success that they have been. One example of their innovation is their enhanced security through their advanced frame construction methods mentioned in the pre-seen, which make it more difficult for window frames to be removed from walls, and therefore it makes it more difficult for a house to be broken into. Shinyglas has also benefited from government regulations, as its products are designed to meet and exceed these requirements, which helps to future-proof them a little bit. We also know that with the market evolving, Shinyglas is really well positioned to benefit from the demand from eco-friendly housing solutions, because it is continuing to evolve its product lines. A way that Shinyglas could protect itself from threats is making sure it's continuing to innovate, as we see things growing like triple glazing and other elements that might be developing in the industry which might pose a threat to Shinyglas's current business model, which we will look at in a bit more detail as we go. So Chapter 8 was created to give you a list of 25 key industry examples to go into the exam with. We are not going to go through all of those today, but we are going to go through about 3 of them, just so that you've got a really good overview of some things that are going on in the industry, and to hopefully encourage you to have a look at this section for yourself. At the bottom of each section of these 25 examples, we have created an example paragraph in the exam style. And this is the style you should use in the exam, where you give both your example and then relate it to the issue in the unseen. Without relating these two things, you won't score marks, so that really is key. Okay, so this example looks at the UK's triple glazing market and how it has expanded despite high costs. So this says, the demand for triple glazing in the UK is rising as homeowners look for ways to increase energy efficiency despite the higher upfront costs than double glazing. And according to recent reports, sales of triple glazing have surged as more people seek insulation solutions that offer greater energy savings in the long run. So this briefly gives you an explanation of how this applies to the pre-seen and some tips for Shinyglas and what they could do to stay competitive. And then at the bottom we have this sample exam paragraph, which I'll read through for you now. So this says, the UK's double glazing market is experiencing growth as customers increasingly prioritise energy efficiency despite the higher cost compared to double glazing. Shinyglas, currently focusing on double glazing, might find an opportunity to expand into this emerging market by offering triple glazing solutions. Adapting to this trend could position the company as a leader in energy-efficient products, driving future growth in response to rising consumer demand for sustainable home improvements. So you'll notice that this exam paragraph talks about the industry trend and relates it to Shinyglas, and that is how you're going to get those key marks.
The next clip is taken from one of our most popular videos, the Top 10 Issues. Top 10 Issues video identifies the 10 most likely issues to appear in the exam based on our expertise and experience in this area. And our expert gives guidance on how to deal with the issues in your answers, provides advice on which models to use, and key points that you should raise. Based on our experience of analysing CIMA case studies for over 10 years, our predictions have been extremely accurate in previous exams, with around 70 to 80% of topics in the real exams being covered in our top 10 lists. So take a look now at this clip from our top 10 issues video.
Financing. So why have we chosen financing? What's the basis of choice? Okay, so I've chosen it for a number of reasons, really. The first is that financing is a really important issue for Shinyglas. In video 5, we saw high levels of debt and finance costs, and obviously that affects other elements, such as the ability for Shinyglas to invest in growth opportunities. We also talked about rising interest rates, and then of course the need for effective debt management really make financing a crucial topic for this examination. Really important to have effective financial management for maintaining long-term sustainability and investor confidence. Now, it's also an opportunity to use financing and tie it into other parts or other elements of the question, such as kind of what's the possibility for expanding into a new territory, for example. And also, it's a topic that comes up time and time again. So, we've already talked about a couple of the likely issues. The first is I've got the impact of rising interest rates. So let's imagine interest rates are rising. Well, how can Shinyglas mitigate the effects of rising interest rates on its finance costs? Now, obviously, if interest rates would impact on the finance costs, but it would also impact the consumers, so there would be less growth. So it'd be kind of like a double whammy. The second one is a debt management strategy. So basically exploring strategies for managing or refinancing existing debt to improve Shinyglas's stability in order to reduce costs as well. And also, as we've kind of briefly touched upon, financing new investments. So you may be asked to evaluate financing options for new projects, raising additional debt, equity, or thinking about other financing options. Okay, so we've got likely issues. What would be the key points to raise that we came across in the pre-seen? Well, firstly, Shinyglas had 800 million $10 million in non-current liabilities. So that does indicate a high reliance on debt financing. Now, this could limit financial flexibility and make the company more vulnerable to external shocks like economic downturns or the increases in interest rates we talked about. Secondly, the significant finance costs of $72 million. Now, that's remained unchanged since 2023. So because finance costs are taking up a significant portion of operating profit, obviously that means it's important for Shinyglas to manage that debt efficiently in order to avoid eroding shareholder value. Number 3 is retained earnings. Now, they increase slightly, so even though there's high finance costs, we know the company's been able to retain some profit, but we don't know whether this would be sustainable in the long term. And a very slight decrease in cash reserves, to $14.3 million could suggest that Shinyglas is struggling to generate enough cash flow to meet its obligations. But again, these are key points to remember, key points we've already flagged in the finance video. Okay, and the final part of our finance is any kind of relevant theory that we can pick up. Well, we got 2 from F2 and 1 from P2, really. And the first is financing options from F2, so evaluating different sources of finance, debt versus equity, and their implications for financial risk and shareholder value. So it's really important to understand the cost of capital and the trade-off between debt and equity, and then the impact on financial ratios such as gearing and return on equity, so that you can make really informed financing decisions. I've also linked to risk management, so talking about strategies for managing interest rate risk, like hedging or refinancing, and the impact on the company's risk profile, like rate swaps and caps. That could help Shinyglas manage its exposure to fluctuating interest rates. And then I've got interest appraisal as well from F2, so investment decisions, assessing the viability of financing new projects through different means, and understanding the impact of financing choices on net present value and internal rate of return and payback periods, so you can understand how to make sound investment decisions. So there we go. That is our number 10. Now we're going to move down to our next, which is IFRS 15 revenue. Okay, so the basis for choice is our first stop. Well, firstly, it's relatively new standard, and it has started appearing in case study exams more and more. And again, we talk about the ease for examiners, and it's quite easy for them to make assessment how well the student understands the actual criteria and knows the recognition steps. Now also, obviously for IFRS 15, it changes how and when companies recognize revenue. Now, for Shinyglas, which could have complex contracts with multiple deliverables, this standard can really impact reported financial performance and stakeholder perceptions. So, what are the likely issues? So firstly, I've got revenue timing. So a scenario possibly on how IFRS 15 affects the timing of revenue recognition for contracts involving multiple performance obligations like large commercial sales. So an example of this might be revenue from a contract which includes both product delivery and installation could need to be recognized separately for each obligation, depending on when control transfers to the customer. I've also got impact on financial statements. So you might be asked to analyze the impact of IFRS 15 on Shinyglas's financial statements, especially on revenue and profit margins. And also I've got outlined the recognition criteria, because again, as we saw in the basis for choice, it's a nice one for the examiners to test to see if you really understand it. So what kind of points should you be raising from the pre-seen? Well, the first one I've got on screen is large commercial contracts. So Shinyglas is dealing with large commercial contracts, maybe supplying windows and doors to builders for a big housing development. Well, that can involve complex revenue recognition issues under IFRS 15. Now, these kind of contracts often have multiple performance obligations like delivery and installation, and they need to be carefully analysed in order to determine when revenue should be recognised. I've also got multiple performance obligations up there. So contracts with multiple deliverables like installation services could lead to revenue being recognised over time rather than at a single point. So an example of this may be that Shinyglas could need to recognise revenue for the delivery of materials separately from the installation service, even though they're part of the same contract. And also for the financial reporting impact, so any changes in revenue recognition could affect reported revenue and profit figures, and that could impact key financial ratios and Shinyglas's stakeholders' perception. So that could impact management decisions and investor confidence. Okay, let's move on to the relevant theory. So we've got financial reporting, IFRS 15, understandably. So basically understanding the principles of ISR 15 and the impact it has on things like revenue recognition, etc. I got a bit of E2 in there as well, looking at managing performance. So looking at how changes in revenue recognition can affect performance management and reporting within the company, and also interpretation of financial statements from F2. So analysing how changes in revenue recognition affect financial performance and key ratios such as profit margins and return on equity.
Our final clip is from our mini mock debrief video. We produce a range of mock exams for each sitting, and alongside each of those mocks is a video debrief. And in these debrief videos, our experienced tutor analyses every question and takes you through a step-by-step guide on the best way to approach them. And by watching debrief videos, you'll learn to understand how to pick out all of the key information in the task and the requirements. You'll use that information to build an effective plan. Many students fail due to poor answer planning. And then that will help you to formulate an excellent answer. So in our sample video, tutor will take you through question 1 of the mini mock.
Okay, and a very useful thing to see actually is the task 1 is worth 45 minutes. So, okay, if this was a real mock exam, if this was a 4-task mock exam, not a real mock exam, if this is a real exam or a 4-task mock exam, that's what I mean. Obviously, you'd have 4 tasks. Each of those would be 45 minutes. The exam would be 3 hours in length. Now, also, you have 100 marks for the total of this exam. So what we're going to do is use the time and the marks to work out exactly how long we should be spending on each question. So we're going to ignore all this. And we're going to go straight down to the subtasks weighting, which are here, here, and here. Okay. So what these do is tell us how much of this question is weighted in the subtask favour. So for example, we can see that subtask A is worth 48% of this first task. Now, do we want to spend all our time doing subtask A and not leave ourselves enough time to get to subtask C? No, we don't, do we? We want to make sure we get the 28% for subtask C too. But likewise, let's imagine we're panicking a bit and we race through subtask A, we race through subtask B, and we've got loads of time to write subtask C and we write a really good answer. Is that going to really help us that much? No, because we can only get 28% of the mark for it. So what we really need to do at the beginning of every task is work out how long we should be spending on it. So then when we start reading through it, start planning it, start writing it, we are always on time. We're always following the clock. So there we go. If we try and get all these in, we can see that we've got the timings and the marks for each one. So I know I am only going to spend 21 minutes for subtask A. That includes reading it, planning it, writing it. So I want to get a really conclusive answer, full answers in that time, and then I'm going to move on. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing for task B and C and the rest of the subtasks through our mini mock, our mock, and our real world exam. So that being said, now we can start thinking about answering the question, okay? We're going to ignore all this top bit. But one thing we then do you think we're going to go straight to this section to get all the information? No. Okay, what we're going to do now is read this, the requirement line. And there's a reason we're reading the requirement line first. And the reason is that if we read the requirement line first, we know what we're looking for when we do come to read this introduction. We can pick out in the information we need. We can discard the information that we don't. Okay, so again, it's just another really simple time saver just by doing it in this order. And if you get used to it through this mock exams, practicing, then it's going to be like second nature to you when it comes to the actual exam. So please provide a report on options that a business such as Shinyglas, okay, has available to it developing a new business model. So we've got to give a report giving options about how we can develop a new business model. And I don't know, we've been through the pre-seen here and you think, okay, why are we having to come up with a new business model? Because obviously that's going to shape our report, isn't it? We've got to make sure it ties in with our strategy. So let's go through this stuff now. So due to the range of market forces, we are subject to and desire to improve our profitability. The board wish to consider how Shinyglas can develop or adapt its business model to fit current consumer and industry trends. Now, we've all just gone through the pre-seen. First industry trend that's really come to my mind straight away is sustainability. I've just jotted that down with a question mark. Now, the fact that our major competitor, Westerglint, whose figures we went through in the pre-seen, has recently announced a major deal with Shinyglas. A provider of sustainable window solutions. So, yes, I went for sustainability too. So they're saying this is a real concern. So what we're being asked to do here is to give a report on the variety of different options that we have in developing a new business model. And the reason why is that Westerglint are kind of stealing a march on us. They are teaming up with a sustainable window solution company, so they've got those industry trends all figured out. Now, obviously, a key issue for us is that we differentiate. We are a premium company. And if we kind of get outflanked by Westerglint, if they start differentiating and say we're offering really sustainable solutions that no one else can, well, then suddenly we're not differentiating ourselves to such a degree. We might start drifting towards being stuck in the middle, if we're thinking about Porter's generic strategies. So what comes to mind straight away? Before we go to the attached material, what comes to mind? Well, it's something for me too, and that's the incumbent dilemma. Now, we're a market leader, we're known for our quality, but suddenly we are being challenged by a competitor that has been able to, or is going to harness technological advancements. So we could carry on doing what we're doing, or perhaps what we need to do and what we're being asked to report is kind of alter our business model in the face of these market forces, as they say over here. So how do we go about that? Well, also with E2 or in E2, the common dilemma is some different strategies you can take to alter your business model. Okay, and they are buy, partner, build, incubate. In fact, there's a couple more. There's invest and things like this, but this will suffice for what we're talking about. So basically, in my report, I've already come up with these ideas, and I know that the question is worth 12 marks. Now, I'm probably got to make some kind of recommendation in a report, kind of suggest maybe my ideal one, kind of summarize it, but what I mean to say is we've got 4 different strategies here. So what we're looking for is about 3 marks per strategy to get our 12 marks. And I'm going to use this model, this incumbent dilemma and the ideas to build a business business model. And I'm going to use that as the structure to my answer. So before I've even got to the reference material, I know what my answer is going to look like. And I know what I'm going to talk about. So now let's go down to the reference material to see if there's any extra information that we need to know. So, news report from Temple Daily News. Westerglint announces key deal with Green Glaze. $96 million deal. Joint venture. Fast-growing sustainable technology companies in Temple offering window solutions designed to improve thermal efficiency and are manufactured with materials that have a lower carbon footprint. So actually this is a bit of a double whammy here, because they are, a less carbon emissive company than we are. They're going to manufacture in a less intense way, so it's giving off or emitting less carbon emissions, and also their final product is really efficient, really good at holding in the heat. So that is a double whammy for a company like us that is kind of prides itself, markets itself, brands itself on being the best. Okay, business mode, it's very brave at Westerglint. Markets responded positively, shares have gone up, and the CEO is very happy, as you would imagine. Okay, so let's think now. Just give myself a bit of space down here, and let's talk about what we're going to put in the answer. Okay, so the first one is buy. So to get the marks, can we just say, okay, buying is one of the strategies that business theory sets forward when considering you're evolving your business model? Well, no, that's a really good start, a really nice introduction, but it's not deep enough to get you the 3 marks that we're looking for from our 4 paragraphs. So obviously you might lead with, buying is acquiring another company. Now, if you've got a real world example, you feel like you've got the time to use it, we do know you get extra marks from employing real world examples. So an example of it that we've included in the mock is Google acquiring YouTube, so that it could really cement its position in the video market. And of course, by doing so, it can do it really, really quickly. So there we go. That might be a nice brief introduction. But the key thing here is it's not just talking about the theory. We have to relate it to the pre-seen itself. So for us, and altering our business model, is it a good idea? Well, what kind of thing could we buy? Could we buy a competitor? Because obviously if we bought a competitor, obviously it would increase our market share. I mean, we're already the market leader, but we quickly take a market share and possibly new customer groups. So that could be an idea. But if we think back to why we're doing this, why have we got to alter our business model? And that's because a competitor is changing theirs. They're going to start to be offering things we can't do. Is acquiring a competitor going to help us at all? I mean, temporarily we'll grow our market share, no doubt. Scale of economy, of course. All the kind of pros you can associate with acquisition. But if you think about it, in the long run, as a response to market forces, is it going to help? Well, it's not. So perhaps a more suitable acquisition target so that we did truly innovate would be to kind of follow Westerglint's suit and purchase or have a joint, well, we'll stick with purchase actually, purchase a tech company. And that tech company may be specialists in energy efficient glass, or perhaps they might provide more digital services which can tie in with home improvement. And again, that strategy then, that choice of acquisition would tie in with the evolving customer needs, which is these market forces, and remember, stemming from sustainability, and also going towards making sure we're compliant with regulations in the future. So if we were to choose acquisition, that would be a far more advantageous choice. Okay, so there we go, that's buy. So you can see I've really taken the theory, explained what it is, related to the pre-seen, talked about pros and cons. So another option from the strategies we came up with earlier on was partner or joint ventures. So this is what Westerglint did. So obviously there's a variety of options we could take. We could follow totally in Westerglint's footsteps and go with green energy, or perhaps we could take another view and have a joint venture with a digital tech company that would allow us to enhance our digital marketing capabilities, for example. So either of these types of joint ventures would enable us to alter our business model and keep in line with our strategy and make sure we're responding accurately to the changes in the market force. Now, of course, there are advantages for partnering and joint venturing. Now, if you think about it in terms of acquisition or partnership, well, obviously with partnering or joint venturing, you got the advantage of shared risk and resource pooling, and obviously you're really able to benefit from the expertise of whichever partner you have chosen to team up with, and they can take advantage of your knowledge too, and our knowledge at Shinyglas. And obviously that's going to help us stay ahead of the competition and align with the current trends without the costs we associate with acquisitions. Okay, the third strategy is build. So obviously a brief kind of introduction to what it is. So for Shinyglas, that could mean developing new product lines, maybe like high-tech glass solutions, or new digital platforms to increase customer interactions. Maybe Shinyglas by themselves could create an online platform where customers can design and customize and order their glazing solutions with real-time visualizations and pricing. So there's lots of different ideas they can do that will help with the issues they're facing. But of course, there are issues with build, and they are time and resources. And we also know from the Ansos matrix that we looked at in the strategic analysis, there's still risk moving into a new area, like a new product line, if they don't actually, or the company doesn't actually have the expertise to carry it out. So although there are advantages like degree of control and you can innovate where you want to innovate, it is really risky and still requires quite a lot of resources. Okay, then I'm going to finish off with kind of two more. So obviously investing, talking about what it is, investing in a startup that aligns with Shinyglas' strategic goals. So perhaps they're the ones with the cutting edge glass technology and you invest in them in order that you can benefit. And obviously it's far simpler than acquisition, but obviously you have to have the availability of a suitable opportunity and also then integrate that opportunity into Shinyglas with existing situation, and that can take a while, and so that's maybe a longer term strategy, very similar to incubate really, so like investing but more hands on, but again cost effective possibly, and promotes long-term innovation, but you've got to find the right startup and then have that kind of also resources for the ongoing support and all this kind of stuff. Now, obviously here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ideas, and we're talking about, well, what are we hoping for? 3 marks of questions gets to 12, that's our maximum. Now, obviously, this is what we're talking about being time dependent. If you can only get, say, 3 down, how are you going to make sure you get your marks? Well, I would certainly finish that up with a summary, and I would make a suggestion about what would be the best option. And probably, in terms of risk and lesser risk, you'd go for partnership or a joint venture, because that is being able to innovate and evolve without all the risks associated with being started from scratch, or with an acquisition, and maybe with a company like Greenglaze, the Westerglint's joint venture partners, who have the right tech to help us respond to the market trends, but also using their expertise. And I suppose investing is very similar to that, but partnership and joint venture will be slightly more immediate.
So there we have it, 5 key videos to get you started with your exam preparation. I hope you found them useful, but the reality is that this is just the starting point, and you'll need to do a lot more preparation over the next few weeks to improve your chances of passing this tricky exam. And to that end, we have a number of options available. The video clips you've just seen are taken from our course content. And our courses are designed to help you ultimately pass the exam. We want to minimize your study time. And of course, we want to ensure that you're getting your value for your money. So if you want more of what you saw today, you want to check out our full pre-seen analysis pack. And that basically includes the full videos from which those clips were taken, from the pre-seen analysis videos through to the top 10 analysis, the strategic analysis, industry analysis, and in addition to that, we've also got 30 pre-seen questions that are designed to help you consolidate your knowledge and understanding of the pre-seen company. Pre-seen analysis is a crucial first step, but passing the exam requires developing your exam technique and lots of practice. So the best all-round comprehensive solution is the Astranti Premium course. On that, in addition to everything you get in the pre-seen analysis pack, you'll also get 5 mock exams. And those mock exams are written according to the pre-seen company. They're not generic and they don't have generic solutions. They're applied to the pre-seen and they're based on the top 10 issues. So you'll get questions in the mock exam that they'll have a good chance of coming up in the real exam. In addition to those mock exams, you can get mock marking and feedback. And this is where you'll submit a mock exam to your dedicated marker and they will mark that and give you a fully annotated script with feedback and annotations. And they also provide a 9-page document with feedback that you can apply in your next mock. In addition to that, we've got our exam technique video series. Exam technique is really important in this exam. And so our exam technique video series has 13 chapter study texts and accompanying videos taking you through every aspect of exam technique, right from understanding the exam through to interpreting the requirements, answer planning, writing technique, and time management. Really valuable course that will help you a lot developing those soft skills that you need to do well in this exam. Alongside that, we have 3 live masterclasses that run throughout the course, from the first one that's looking at the pre-seen through to later ones that look more at exam technique and theory revision to help you get ready. Included in the premium, you get access to tutor and mentor support, and you'll be able to access our discussion hub where you can post your questions and talk with other students and tutors about any questions and queries you may have. And our premium course comes with our double pass guarantee, and that's exclusive to premium course students. It's a double guarantee because if you don't pass, if you take this course and you don't pass the exam, we'll give it you again for free with no extra charge. And you also have a 14-day money-back guarantee. So if after 14 days on the course you're not happy, you can get a refund, no questions asked. So whatever your situation, we believe we have the solution for you at Astranti, and you can find out more at astranti.com/CIMA. Thanks for watching.